If you look up at the top left corner of the edit window, you'll see that we have 4 different edit modes. We have slip, shuffle, spot, grid, and I guess technically we have 4.5 because there's absolute grid and relative grid. So let's talk about slip first. Go click on the grabber tool, and this is the default mode in Pro Tools, so you're probably used to this, where you just click on the region and you can slip it around freely. You're not constrained by a grid or anything like that. You just move it wherever you want to move it. So that's slip mode. Pretty straightforward. Let's talk about shuffle. Shuffle's different in slip mode. If I wanted to delete this section, I just delete it and I have a hole there. Undo that. In shuffle mode, if I delete a section, it cinches the 2 remaining regions together, joins them together right where, so there's no empty space in between. Sometimes that is useful. Let's undo that. Spot mode, we looked at this a little earlier, but if I bring in, you don't even have to bring anything in. Let's just move this. As soon as you touch a region, click on a region, it asks you where you want to put it. So I'll just say I want to put it at measure 10. And you can see, moved it all the way over to measure 10. As soon as I touch it again, ask me where I want to put it. Let's put it back at measure 1. And it's back at measure 1. That is spot mode. And last but not least, grid. So right now we have it set to absolute grid. And when you are in absolute grid mode, well, let's zoom in a little bit so you can see this. There are these grid markers here, and notice I can't move in between the grid markers. I can only move to the grid. And the resolution of this grid is set with this right up here. All you need to do, if you want to change it from, right now it's set to a quarter note. If you want to change it to a half note, you'll see the spacing of the grid markers got wider, and there you go. Or if you want to change it to a bar, see? Now I can only move 1 bar at a time. That is grid mode. Let's talk about relative grid mode. So, well, you see where the markers are here? Let's go back to half notes. Okay, so here are the very thin grid markers. And right now I'm in slip mode, so I can move it wherever I want. Let's say I move it right in between these 2 grid markers. And I I shift over to relative grid. You'll notice that I'm moving 2 bars or 2 beats at a time, half notes, but it's relative to where I started from. So that's why it's called relative grid. And that is an overview of the 4.5 edit modes.